in this session, he faults the creation of regional policing outfits, saying they were formed in panic, hence their questionable level of success. We're seeing these same panic measures, which is what you term these outfits that have a reason, set up in other parts of the country as well. Yes. And Motekong came up, and till today they're still standing. We even saw a story of success in recent times where they were able to help apprehend kidnappers who had taken people into the bush in Ondo State. Yet you say that it's failed in the Southeast because it was set up in a panic matter. For those who saw the situation in the Southeast, they felt the move by the state governors was coming a little too late because it would seem that...
Yes, of course, there were disappointments at some level. Monopoly of quasi force, right? So even at whatever level the government comes in, if they have sufficient quasi power, they should be able to police the environment. So as it is now, it's difficult. And so if you have non-state actors with AK-47 and all of that, and then government can provide just pump action for their own security outfits, because there is a law stopping them from carrying those sophisticated arms. Remember, under the police force of Nigeria. So whatever you call it, it's not a police. And then there's a limit to what you give them in terms of arms. But they are dealing with non-state actors that have access to sophisticated weapons. So that is why, if you send out those people, maybe say forest guard or whatever I call them, to go and confront these guys, they can't match them. But if they are allowed in a controlled manner to be able to carry sufficient arms, in terms of the firepower, then they should be able. So I was asking the state government, so why are we not talking about drones to be able to locate? They say it needs approval from the federal government to do that. And how did they get this approval? You see, so if we have a conversation and I agree that governors or state government should be able to set up their own level of police and equip them the best way they can under a controlled atmosphere or regulation by a federal outfit, just like in judiciary, some of these things you are seeing will stop. There are states that are equipped to take care of them. So any person who wants security can go and live in that state. Those who don't want to secure their people will live there, desert them. Right? So I know not very many states will have the resources to do that, but that is fine. Those who can, let them do it. Those who cannot, let the federal government try to help them with this voting or not. So my colleagues were not comfortable, and they insisted we should outlaw it after we had presented our recommendation. So it was law. They said that the use of electronic voting is ever outlawed. Well, what we wanted is to introduce it. So we left it at that. So about early in 2015, we were able to convince them, and we passed a supplementary, an amendment to that act, recommending, or rather providing, that INEC can apply electronic voting, which stands till now, has to remain the law. I convinced my colleagues that that's the best way to go, especially when I had witnessed the power of electronic transmission in the election. And when it like 2 days, the electorate agreed, and we now in the National Assembly. And when it got to the National Assembly, the Assembly was divided between APC and PDP. Of remember that.
Has it altered?
Yeah, I'm in the committee. The chairman of the committee knows what I'm talking about. So, but I don't want to talk about who tampered. And then it was submitted. But because it has already been politicized, and the APC is in majority in the National Assembly, so expectedly, since they took a party position on this, so if you vote 1 million times, they will win. Right? So, but the good thing is that in the House of Reps, they were able to find a middle ground, in spite of all the problem they had there. And so this meant that they passed a different thing from the Senate. So the legislative implication is that we're going to have a conference committee. They're going to agree whether it's the Senate version or the House version. So the good thing about that is that we're going to have equal number of senators and equal member of the House. So it's going to be a matter of reasoning and conviction that will now decide which will carry the day. And hopefully, the composition will cut accord across the party lines.
You spoke of a party position. Only recently we had cause to speak with the governor of Kaduna State, whose state recently conducted local government elections using electronic voting.
Yes.
And we brought this issue to him in terms of what happened in the National Assembly. And he says that he's not aware that there is a party position on the matter, but he thinks that electronic voting, even voting, not just even transmission now, is the way to go. Do you think that perhaps the National Assembly could leverage on the understanding of people like that to influence members
That's
of the
what
party?
I'm saying. The fact that we've had our vacation, people have consulted widely. They've seen the feelings of Nigerian and international community in terms of the way the voting went, especially in the Senate. So I'm hopeful that most of our colleagues are coming with a new attitude to this. Especially, we INEC have insisted that they can do not just electronic voting, but also electronic transmission. And this is the electoral management body. And remember, we're not forcing INEC to use electronic means to conduct the election. We say, look, you have the leverage. There are people on the ground. You understand this whole thing. So if you can, for Christ's sake, use electronic means. And they say they can. Then some people say they can't. I don't understand it.
Were you disappointed when the chairman of that committee voted against electronic transmission?
Well, I don't want to make a judgment on that. It's my friend. But he knows how I feel about it. We've had so much conversation at committee level and all of this. And I told him clearly, look, you are the chairman of this committee. The decision will take care. We either make or marry you. You'll be remembered for being the author of electronics and the reform in the electoral system. So don't allow any person to deceive you. You have to be, as you are going to take responsibility. And those conversations weigh his mind when we eventually allow that to go to the plenary. So if he decided that to vote against, that's what I'm saying, that it was also a party decision. So you can understand that. So I pity him. It was uncalled for. It was unexpected. That was why I'm emphasizing that it was a party thing. I know I've been an old politician, and so you understand the issue of party loyalty. But it cannot be to the detriment of our national development.
On the whole, when you look at the Nigerian state and all the issues that are agitating for attention, I mean, only recently the president asking for $42 billion to get new loans, which was already presented before in the MTEF, and even some millions of euros. And there are questions as to whether Nigeria can continue to afford to take these loans, whether we are liquid enough to pay back, what we can do to grow our revenue, because we keep getting told that our GDP to debt ratio is okay. It is a GDP to revenue ratio which we should worry about. And as somebody who is in the National Assembly, which to scrutinize what the proposals that the executive arm of government is making for the good of the country, are you worried that we could be making progress, or we're not making progress at all?
We've entered a big debt trap in the past. I'm very worried that we are going back to the era of the debt trap. And most likely it's going to be even worse than what we had before. The reason is that our borrowing scheme, is extremely worrisome. When most of this loan is coming from individual countries like China. Because we cannot be talking about debt forgiveness with a country. Right? So for them, it's investment. So what happens is that if you use the money from China to do infrastructures, those infrastructures belongs to them until you pay. And if you don't pay, they can take up such infrastructures, take it over. Something like the airport, railway, and all of that. It has happened in many countries. So, but if you are borrowing from multilateral agencies like World Bank, IMF, and all of that, a decision can be made at the highest level for debt forgiveness. It's not going to happen with China. So it's not just the borrowing that's the problem, but also where we're borrowing from. So I worry for our future. So the earlier we slow it on the day because it belongs to their party. But you must also understand that just end everything, including government. So when all these are over, I will sit down and reflect our roles in it. Some people will be full of regrets. So this is time to think wisely. across party lines, no matter where you belong.
To you from Senator Ike Ekweremadu, a former three-time Deputy Senate President, delves into the value-added tax controversy, suggesting that it was a mistake it wasn't included in the Constitution. He also expressed his concern about Nigeria's debt burden. On the issue of VAT, you've asked
Month, what I call filibuster federalism, is extremely dangerous. And nobody cared to listen. Right? So we've talked about restructuring. And I believe that under a restructured federation, every country, every part of Nigeria will benefit. Because it's about the management of our resources. Every part of Nigeria has sufficient solid mineral. I'm not talking about the liquid mineral, like oil and gas. I'm talking about solid mineral, gold, diamond, and all of that. Every part. But today, they are being stolen. So, but if we have a proper restructuring where we ask states under a concurrent arrangement to manage those solid minerals, then they can sell them legitimately, can mine them legitimately, and they make money. But nobody wants to care. Some are stealing those solid minerals and still benefiting from the oil and gas. So it is also with the VAT.
Sorry.
So the problem...
Are you saying that states are stealing the minerals?
I'm not saying some people are stealing under state watch.
Okay.
I'm not saying the state. They can't be official stealing anyway.
Just clarifying.
Yeah, I'm just saying that under state watch. Some people are taking them, people from China, other parts of the world, coming to certain states. They mine this our solid mineral in collusion with sometimes state officials, and they're taken away from Nigeria. And this part of the problem we have, especially in the northwest, all this banditry and all of that. Some of them are related with the solid mineral theft, because some of those people who are helping them. Who are getting the natives to help them, they also provide the arms. I'm sure the armed forces know this.
So why wouldn't the National Assembly just intervene? Well,
how are they going to intervene? Anyway, coming back to VAT and all of that, the problem there is that if you look at our legislative list, you will not see VAT either in the exclusive list or the concurrent list. They are not talking about profit tax, capital gains tax, and income tax. No mention was made in respect of consumption tax. So, under Section 4(7) of the Constitution, anything that's not mentioned in either the exclusive list or in the concurrent list belongs to what we call the residual list. So that's the argument these governors are making. But we need to have a conversation and find a political solution around it, and probably do a legislation that will be acceptable to everybody. Right? So, but until that happens, the only solution is to allow the whole legal process to take place up to the Supreme Court. Maybe the Supreme Court should be able to come up with a decision that is acceptable to everyone. Or even if they come up with a decision, a judgment that is not acceptable to everybody, we can then come back and reason together. So that we should be our brother's keepers.
Do you think it buttresses the argument of those who say that we have not even finished implementing the Constitution which we have at hand? We're all talking of restructuring.
That's the problem, because the Constitution, the origin of the Constitution is suspicious, right, or not entrenched. Because when Abubakar regime set up a committee headed by Wiki Tobe, they were given, I think, 60 days to draft you can't write a Constitution in 60 days. So they were forced to put something together and submit. So there were a lot of mistakes in it. There were a lot of inconsistencies in it, right? So if you look at Section 80, 81, 83, Section 162, Section 112, and 120, all of them talking about consolidated revenue for federation account in terms of funding of judiciary and all of that. You can see all kinds of modeling up. Right now, nobody's sure whose responsibility it is to fund costs in the states. Some part of the country say, it's the responsibility of the federal government. Some are saying, it's the responsibility of the state government. Right?
Was not including VAT a mistake as well?
That's what I'm saying.
You think it's a mistake?
Of course, because it's not properly situated anywhere. It was a mistake. And that's what led to this. Because even if you didn't use the word VAT, if you just say consumption tax, they will understand that's that, but there's no such mention. You know? And when we tried over the time to put these things in the proper perspective, you know, especially the issue of realignment of the legislative list, of course, they didn't sign it. You know? So these are some of the problems we have. We'll make effort in National Assembly to be able to put things in the right place, and so that some of those mistakes in the Constitution are corrected. And then you take 2-3 years, waste all your time and resources, and end of the day, it's not signed.
So you actually think that the federal government should collect consumption tax?
No, this is in the country under law. No, wait.
Yeah.
We have what you call rule of law. The federal government cannot collect something that's not mentioned in the law. They cannot.
But ideally...
No, it's not business. See, that is the ideal thing, is what the law says. Right? So remember, we're on a federal system of government.
The law didn't say anything about it.
Yeah, so that's why we're saying, let's see what the Supreme Court says. So when we finish with the Supreme Court, if there's anything that needs to be talked about,